Point number 3. Who should do what is implementation detail. Here's how I've been thinking as a problem solver and a software engineer. When I'm writing software, I start with an abstract problem. For example, take this text and modify it to produce an XML file. Then I have to break the problem into many small pieces. First read the existing bytes to memory, then parse the data in some way, then surround the text with the proper XML tags, then finally output the XML to a file. Exactly what happens where is a detail I simply do not think about when I imagine the system. I think about the end result to achieve and how to achieve it. From software, I have learned that I can pretty much achieve anything. The difficult question is this a good goal? So this is how I'm thinking about designing society as well. Almost everything can be copy-pasted from objectivist philosophy. Among the things there is that government cannot initiate force. But just because government cannot initiate force does not mean that we have a good society. If the private sector doesn't build universities that teach objectivism, all the effort will be lost again. If the art is nihilistic and is allowed to spread, how does this support happiness? It doesn't. We cannot use government force to stop nihilist art in private sector, but it should still be stopped if we want happiness on earth. Say we have freedom of speech protected by the government. Because we didn't think like builders with an overall system in mind, we get a bunch of Marxists who spread poison ideas about our greatest heroes. An entrepreneur who builds some great business and is criticized by Marxists. We cannot use government force to compel them to shut up, but we still don't want those people to spread their poison. If we didn't think like builders, so we get in a bunch of nihilists who want to see this project destroyed. They spread lies about what's going on, and now we are stuck extinguishing fires instead of building. You see, there's a lot of problems to be solved, and when I'm talking about how things should be, is from the perspective of a systems designer who wants to achieve the overall goal of a society of reason. If private sector or government should do a certain type of work is an implementation detail. And I hope later to bring aboard philosophers on the team who can be a guide to what actions the government should take and what actions the private sector should take. But the work needs to be done. And if I think that some work is important to be done, I've used the word should. Whether or not it's private sector or government that should do it, the work should be done somehow. Bad people must be blocked from entering Mindshore, one way or the other, by the government or by boycott or by other means. If there are objectivist principles that prevents the government from doing something, we'll just set up a private foundation to do the same work. If a private foundation cannot do the work, we'll have to establish a culture to do the same work. If the culture cannot do the work, we'll have to set up a company to do the work. One way or the other, bad people must be blocked because they don't fit into a society of reason. They are not conducive to happiness. Good people must be attracted by government advertisement page or by private sector businesses or by a foundation sponsoring travels, or by other means. If it's against objectivist principles that the government set up an ad page, we'll have to do it by other means. Private business, a foundation, voluntary work, cultural means, Facebook page, YouTube channel, what have you. But good people must be attracted for the project to succeed, one way or the other. If the goal is to produce an XML file, we should read the input first. If the goal is to have a society of reason, if we want to achieve happiness on earth, we should design a culture that supports this goal, a government that supports this goal, an immigration policy that supports this goal, a school system that supports this goal, software systems that supports this goal, both public and private. Everything should support that one goal of having a society of reason. If the goal is to build a society of reason, we must attract reasonable and good people, one way or the other. Philosophers can help us make the lines clear on what private and public sector can do. But the goal must remain crystal clear, a society of reason. The rest is implementation detail. Sometimes by law, by education, by entrepreneurs, by foundations, by corporations. Just because reason and individual rights are absolute does not mean that we become pacified and incapable of getting work done. A society of reason needs a specific course of action to be achieved. It needs a specific set of institutions, of government, laws, of private corporations, of schools, of universities, of businesses, and all the other parts that make up a society. So summing up, number 1, we should have a total overview of society, not just of a government. This gives us a much better perspective. Number 2, professional philosophers should be involved to set up the system. There is ample support in the objectivist literature for the implementing of a philosophical government. Number 3, who should do what is an implementation detail. We will stay within the principles clearly laid out in objectivism, and where the government cannot do certain things, we can set up a foundation or in other ways make sure that the work that needs to be done will get done. Thank you very much for your time.